Tennessee football schedule is not going to get the credit it deserves this year when it comes to the college football playoff rankings. What do I mean by that? Bill Connolly released his projected SP Plus strength of schedule rankings for 2025 yesterday. It was the projected top 40 for SP Plus strength of schedule. In that top 40, Tennessee, I'm not kidding here, had the second worst strength of schedule in the SEC, only to Missouri. At the same time, their strength of schedule was 24th in the nation. That's right. You heard that right. They had the second worst strength of schedule in the SEC, but the 24th strength of schedule in the nation based on the projected 2025 strength of schedules by SP+. What does that mean? It means the SEC is loaded in football. It also means that while you have to look at who you play in the conference, not just your conference strength of schedule, to a certain degree in the SEC, you do get the credit for who you play in your conference. That who you play in your conference factor, and this is what we talked about last year. Mega conferences with 16 teams playing 8 conference games or 18 teams playing 9 conference games are going to create wildly imbalanced schedules. That hasn't been the case in the SEC. It's actually balanced them more because for a while when they were separated by divisions, one division was significantly better than the other, and it was very obvious at times, whether it be the East in the 90s or the West in the 2010s. Now that they're all just kind of thrown into a pot, they actually had their schedules bring more parity. And with that, they all play tough strength of schedule now. The scheduling imbalance is not the same in the SEC that it is in the Big Ten. Okay? The Big Ten, you're capable of getting in Indiana. Now, I want to be fair to the Big Ten. All 18 teams in the Big Ten are in the top 40 of the strength of schedule. However, only 8 are in the top 25. Okay? All 16 SEC teams have projected strength of schedules in the top 25. Only 8 Big Ten teams have projected strength of schedules in the top 25. By the way, if you're wondering who the 25th team is, it is, funny enough, Syracuse, who has a projected 14th ranked strength of schedule. The reason this is so relevant is because I was guilty of this. I made Texas and Indiana interchangeable last year. Texas played the worst schedule in the SEC. Indiana played the worst schedule in the Big Ten. But if you go back and look at it, Texas' schedule strength was still top 40 overall, I think top 30. Whereas Indiana's was, I don't think, was inside the top 100. It may have finally cracked the top 100 after they played Ohio State, but that was it. When you take that into account, there's a huge difference between a Big Ten team that gets a bad draw in strength of schedule and an SEC team. Part of this is, you guys want to go, well, the Big Ten plays 9 conference games and the SEC only plays 8. Well, the SEC is required to play a Power 5 team out of conference. They do that. So that's another 9th conference game that the Big Ten's not required to play. And on top of that, if you get the draw that Indiana got, you're getting a significantly easier schedule. Every SEC team last year would have taken Indiana's schedule. They would have taken that schedule over 8 SEC games. If you had a choice between Indiana's schedule last year and getting the 8 worst teams in the SEC while being required to play a Power 5 school, but being able to pick whatever Power 5 school it is, like playing Wake Forest, 100% of the time, you're still taking Indiana's schedule. Okay? And that's a big deal. Now, unfortunately for Tennessee, and unfortunately for a lot of other SEC schools, people aren't going to see it like that. They're going to try to draw parallels between those who get the lucky draw of playing bad SEC teams, or the worst SEC teams, and those who get the lucky draw of playing the worst Big Ten teams. And they shouldn't do that. But bank on it. Schedule strength will be way too heavily weighted on where your schedule strength is within your conference, not where it is overall. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better. I'm going to say that again. Teams' schedule strength next year will be more evaluated based on where they stand in their conference among team schedule strength and not where they stand nationally. And that's a problem. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Welcome back. I'm doing a poll question real quick, and I'm going to word this a little weird, but I'm going to say Tennessee's projected second worst strength of schedule ranking in the SEC for 2025 is concerning. It could cost Vols in CFP. That's one possibility. No big deal. SEC is SEC. And another one is it'll be tougher when the season. It'll end up being tougher. All right, those are your three options. So Tennessee's projected 2025 Tennessee's projected second worst strength of schedule ranking in the SEC for 2025 is concerning, could cost Vols and CFP. No big deal. SEC is SEC, or it'll end up being tougher. I'm just going to tell you guys, it's concerning. To me, it's no big deal. SEC is SEC. I think largely the reason I say that is because the CFP showed last year they're not valuing schedule strength that much at all. But they did to a certain degree by not giving Indiana a home game, despite going 11-1. I wonder if that was more about where Indiana was placed in its conference in schedule strength than where it was nationally. And this is the problem. I think the reputation of Tennessee having the second worst strength of schedule in the SEC is going to prove more costly to them than actually their strength of schedule overall. But it really shows that there is still a difference between these two conferences, guys. As of right now, I get that the Big Ten has won 2 straight national championships. I get that. And at the top, the Big Ten competes with the SEC. It may even be better. But 1 through 16, the SEC is significantly deeper than the Big Ten 1 through 18. It just is, guys. It just is. And you can bring up Michigan beating Alabama last year. You can bring up Ohio State beating Tennessee. You can bring up Ohio State winning the national title last year. Penn State advancing. There's a lot of things you can bring up to make the case that the Big Ten might be better than the SEC, but it is still top heavy, and the SEC is still deeper 1 through 16. Now, I think while the SEC is still deeper, schedule strength overall should be a thing. I don't think you should factor in the conference they should play in. I don't. But I do think you should. I'm worried that the factoring will be done in the sense of somebody will say Tennessee's got the worst schedule in the SEC and Indiana has the worst schedule in the Big Ten. So they're interchangeable, even if Indiana's overall schedule strength is ranked number 100 and Tennessee's is ranked number 25. That's what I'm worried that they might do. And look, there's potential precedent for them doing that. That's what we need to worry about, because if the Big Ten's reputation has now rivaled the SEC because of what happened, you could see them doing just that and saying that, oh, maybe these actual analytical models are overrated. Don't do that. Don't do that at all, committee. I'm just telling you right now, don't do that. As far as ranking schedules in the SEC, Oklahoma has the projected toughest, Florida second, Arkansas's third, Vanderbilt's fourth, Mississippi State's fifth, South Carolina sixth, Kentucky seventh, LSU is eighth, Texas A&M is ninth. By the way, that rounds out the top 10. Alabama is 10th in the SEC, Texas is 11th, and Georgia is 12th. 12 of the 13 toughest schedules in the nation are from the SEC. And then nationally, Auburn is 14th. That would put them, so nationally, Auburn's 15th. Auburn is 15th, 13th national. Auburn's 15th nationally, 13th in the SEC. And then you're talking Ole Miss is at 23rd nationally, 14th in the SEC. Tennessee's 24th nationally, 15th in the SEC. And then Missouri has the easiest, 25th nationally, 16th in the SEC. However, the only Big Ten teams ahead of Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri are Iowa, Ohio State, USC, UCLA, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. And then Syracuse is ahead of them too. The rest of the Big Ten is below all of them. So look, this is very, very, very clear. The SEC is a deeper conference still than the Big Ten, even if the Big Ten has caught up in a lot of ways. The gap is narrow, but in overall depth of conference, the SEC is a deeper conference, and Tennessee still has a tough schedule next year, despite what's happening. General Ursa says, Caleb, since you're all for soft scheduling, would you prefer if Tennessee went independent and play nothing but teams like ETSU and Troy? No, General Ursa, because then they would get treated. I mean, that CFP takes it into account to a certain degree. I am for soft scheduling like Notre Dame, though. I would schedule like Notre Dame. I thought they scheduled a little soft last year. I'd go on that level. And I would just do it to show up the CFP. CFP has got to do a better job of analyzing schedule strength. And Adam adds, conferences are a joke as long as only half the teams play in the regular season. That goes for the Big Ten, SEC, and ACC. They all need to play more than 50% of the teams. Adam, you're right. They just need to lessen the conferences. Mega conferences make no sense. They're stupid. David Speaks says 4 of the 6 SEC teams go undefeated with that Indiana schedule with a home game against Ohio State last year. I think you're right. 4 to 6 of the SEC teams, you say. And Derek says he hopes the Sooners are a surprise team. That would end up helping Tennessee's strength of schedule. Speaking of that, looking at it now with 10 votes in, Tennessee's projected second worst strength of schedule ranking in the SEC for 2025 is plurality says no big deal. SEC is SEC. That's 45%. But 27% say concerning, could cause Vols and CFP, and another 27% say it'll end up being tougher.